Hello and welcome back to another Parry This video. Today we are continuing our alternate history series with a hypothetical discussion about what would happen if the Rough Riders were transported back in time to the Battle of Bladensburg in the War of 1812. This is just the latest in this series, with our previous videos covering topics such as modern US Army Rangers at the Alamo, World War I soldiers at the Battle of Bunker Hill, and of course, the 95th Rifles helping the Saxon Army at the Battle of Hastings. All of them are interesting topics that I believe are well worth watching. So if you enjoyed this video, I recommend you check them out next. But let's just get down to it and discuss this topic. So first, let's just start with the real history of the Battle of Bladensburg. In the broad tableau of American history, the Battle of Bladensburg holds a distinctive place, embodying the complexities and turbulence of the War of 1812. This conflict, rooted in long-standing British-American tensions, saw the United States seeking to affirm its independence against British infringements on American trade and the impressment of American sailors, precipitating a war that smoldered across diverse frontiers. Amidst the throes of this overarching conflict, the Battle of Bladensburg unfurled on August 24, 1814. This engagement, notable for its strategic significance, saw American forces under the command of Brigadier General William H. Winder pitted against the robust British force led by Major General Robert Ross. The American force, comprising around 7,000 regular troops, militia, and sailors, confronted a disciplined contingent of approximately 4,500 British regulars, launching a defense to safeguard the national capital. In terms of tactics, the American forces established a series of defensive lines to halt the British advance. Despite these strategic placements, the American lines crumbled under the British onslaught, compounded by coordination issues and the militia's limited combat experience. This precipitous retreat, later dubbed the Bladensburg Races, allowed the British to march unopposed into Washington D.C., leading to the infamous burning of public buildings, including the White House and the Capitol. In the fray of battle, the weaponry wielded by both forces echoed the era's technological milieu. The Americans and the British were armed with smoothbore muskets, primarily the Model 1795 musket and the Brown Bess respectively. These firearms, with a maximum effective range of approximately 100 yards, were characterized by limited accuracy and a rate of fire of about 3 to 4 rounds per minute. However, both sides deployed artillery, amplifying the battle's lethality. The Battle of Bladensburg culminated in a resounding British victory, casting a pall over American morale. The American forces suffered around 500 casualties, including those killed, wounded, or captured, while the British incurred a comparable number of casualties. This clash, albeit a grim chapter in American history, underscored the nation's resilience and the imperishable spirit to safeguard liberty and independence, setting the stage for the eventual conclusion of the War of 1812, and the solidification of American autonomy. So now just a little bit of information about our futuristic troops, the Rough Riders. The Rough Riders hold a unique place in American history, known for their bravery and diverse makeup during the Spanish-American War of 1898. Founded by Theodore Roosevelt, they were a volunteer group gathered to help free Cuba from Spanish control. The group was a mix of cowboys, miners, lawmen, and college athletes, bringing a range of skills and backgrounds to the regiment. Despite their varied experience, the Rough Riders underwent focused and disciplined training to prepare for war. Their preparation was designed to quickly turn this diverse group into an effective fighting force, ready to face the challenges of battle in unfamiliar and rugged terrain. Armed with Springfield Krag carbines and Colt single-action Army revolvers, the Rough Riders were well equipped for both long and close-range combat. The Krag carbine, with a range of around 600 yards, had a fire rate of 8 to 10 rounds per minute, offering accuracy and reliability. Each member also carried a bandolier with 50 rounds of ammunition, ensuring they were ready for sustained fighting. In the end, the Rough Riders played a significant role in the American victory in the Spanish-American War. Their effective training, diverse backgrounds, and solid equipment helped them to make a substantial impact, leaving a lasting legacy in American military history. Now, moving on to the scenario. So now that you know what the Battle of Bladensburg is, and you know who the Rough Riders are, we're going to ask the question: what if Teddy Roosevelt led the Rough Riders through a time portal back into the Battle of Bladensburg to teach the Brits one final time that America isn't their playground? Now, I will place a couple constraints on this one, since the entire regiment consisted of over 1,000 cavalry soldiers, all armed with rifles, revolvers, and several machine gun squad. This is obviously too much, so we'll have to move some numbers around. First, we are only going to take 200 of the Rough Riders plus Teddy, so he will pick his absolute best men, but only the top 200 of them. They will not be bringing their machine guns or any extra ammunition, just their rifles, revolvers, their bandoliers with 50 rounds of rifle ammunition, and their gun belts with 24 rounds for their revolvers. But just to make make things more interesting, we're also going to handicap the American army that was already at the Battle of Bladensburg. We'll even the odds since the Americans outnumbered the British in this battle. We'll be taking away 2,700 of the American troops and sending them somewhere else. Perhaps Washington as a last line of defense. That way, both sides sit at an even 4,500 troops. The British, with their regulars, made up mostly of their best troops, veterans of the Napoleonic War, and the Americans with their smattering of conscripts, militia, and now 200 Rough Riders led by one Colonel Theodore Roosevelt. In reality, the outcome of this battle is one that already makes very little sense. The American army was nearly twice the size of the British army, was already entrenched in defensive lines, with two rear lines to retreat to if the first was endangered. If the defending forces were prepared and even a little competent, they should have easily repulsed the attacking forces, if not outright defeated them. Most historians agree that confused communication and a shocking lack of battlefield experience in both the frontline troops and the command structure on the American side are what led to the embarrassing defeat that the Americans faced on this day. This is reflected in the unorganized retreat and the fact that both sides suffered similar and relatively low casualties in the battle. All of this suggests that if the American forces would have simply held the line, they would have easily won with simply their defensive advantage and pure numerical superiority. This is why the addition of 200 futuristic, battle-hardened soldiers fresh from the Spanish-American War, under the command of a charismatic leader wielding weapons from 84 years in the future, would lead to utter devastation for the British. The rifles the Rough Riders are using are capable of firing accurately at about 3 times the rate of the British muskets and 6 times the range. They are also equipped with revolvers that can be fired 6 times without reloading, which also have a greater firing rate and nearly the same effective range as the British muskets. This is to say, obviously, the Colt revolvers have a longer effective range, but accurately firing a revolver at 100 yards is no mean feat. Each Rough Rider, equipped with 56 rifle rounds and 30 revolver rounds, means that the total ammunition before they run out is 17,200 rounds, enough to kill the British army nearly 4 times. Of course, we do not assume that every shot kills, but even at only 15%, which is the made-up number I like to use for these videos, that is still 2,580 fatalities. Of course, it should also be noted that the remaining 4,300 American troops would only be more effective when bolstered by these veterans, and their morale would be boosted enormously when fighting alongside them. Judging from the fact that prior to their enormously stupid retreat in real life, they held their own against Britain's best, I think the battle would be fairly one-sided. And this is all to assume that the Rough Riders would simply position themselves at the forward line and hold it with traditional War of 1812 style tactics alongside their old-timey counterparts. There is another option, namely skirmishing. Being a cavalry unit, the Rough Riders have horses and are trained to fight as riflemen on foot or well mounted. This means that they could easily break down into self-contained squads and harass the British from afar, destroying their cohesion and eliminating prime targets without ever really getting into range to be in any real danger. From 300 yards away, they could be plinking choice British targets as musket balls harmlessly roll on the ground many yards in front of them. The Rough Riders would be more than capable of skirmishing endlessly until the British retreat in disorder, opening up an American counteroffensive to wipe them out, or until the Rough Riders run out of ammunition, having likely severely depleted the British forces, then returning to the defensive lines to coordinate the defense in a much more organized and clear manner than in real life. Either way, I struggle to see an outcome that has the British burning the White House while Teddy Roosevelt leads the army on the other side of the battlefield, standing between the Redcoats and Washington, D.C. But that's where we're going to leave things for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and all of my wild speculation. I know many of you out there might dislike the fact that I spend about half the video's runtime setting the stage, but as I am a historian first and an entertainer second, I like to make sure everyone watching at least has the opportunity to learn and be well informed about the topic before viewing the video. If you have any recommendations for future videos, or if you have anything to say about what I've put forth in this video, please let me know down in the comments section. But with all of that in mind, thanks a ton for watching and have a nice day, and I'll see you on the next battlefield.